Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagano, and welcome back to another fun-filled, action-packed episode of Iowa's most technologically challenged conservative podcast. We are back here in Studio 130 for a Thanksgiving preview episode of the podcast with all kinds of technical problems. So yours truly hasn't come in here and done this in about a week. And so I don't even know if we're going to be able to publish this in the end, guys, but here we are.
Still going to give it my best shot, Chris.
Good. Well, look, this is probably going to end up being our best episode is really what's going to happen in the end.
Yeah.
So we have Sarah Curry with us today, and I've been telling the folks that you're going to be with us here for a while, and now you're actually here. So
I'm here.
Good. It's very exciting. So we got a lot really to go over today. I am very flustered because I couldn't get this thing to work. And so our apologies if you're having to, on your drive to wherever your family takes you for Thanksgiving and you're listening to this staticky, poorly produced podcast, just bear with us here today. But
our takes are going to be worth fighting through any audio difficulties,
okay.
Everybody.
So I had lots of fun stuff, even though I'm no longer in a good mood as we go to record this.
We're going to change that.
We're going to change that. Okay.
Yeah.
So first things first, Sarah, you haven't been on the podcast a lot. I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions: Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Beatles.
Okay. There's no wrong answer to that question, but the right answer is the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
So, Chris, I'm not gonna drag you into that one. However, I did see the Rolling Stones announce their first tour dates for the Hackney Diamonds tour, which is coming up this summer. And I believe Mick Jagger is getting close to 80 now, right? So who do you think is the lead sponsor? Mick Jagger is now 80 years old. It's going on tour. But who's now the sponsor of the world's greatest rock and roll band? It's the Hackney Diamonds Tour, brought to you by AARP. So I thought that was really fitting. So it made me happy. I'm actually going to try and make it to one. So anyway,
So you should know
you're going to change this. You said you were going to make me happy, that this was going to go so much better, and yet here we are.
So you missed it when I came into the office this morning. I explained to everybody, I hate concerts unless everyone is behaving themselves and sitting in their nicely assigned seats so you can watch everything. And that's why I don't go to concerts, unless they're like orchestras or something nice and calm.
Really?
Yeah.
You ever seen Rolling Stones in concert, Chris?
Nope.
That's disappointing. I've heard them twice, seen them once. So
Seen Poison in concert a few times.
that counts.
And Skinnerd.
That's awesome. So you don't like concerts. So this question, what's the one concert you wish you would have gone to but didn't?
Well, I can tell you the one that I am really glad I went to after initially pushing back was the first Poison concert.
There you go.
That. Yeah.
So my first concert ever was Pat Benatar
Nice.
in New Orleans.
Nice.
But then Paul did get tickets to go see Owl City, and I like that.
Oh, okay.
But we had little VIP seats on the side, so I didn't have to stand with everybody, and that made it enjoyable. So it was good.
Nice. Wish I had gone to see Guns N' Roses when they're at Carver Hawkeye.
Oh, like the original.
Yeah, that was like before even Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. I mean, this was like the real good stuff.
Yeah, I passed up some. I mean, I'm kind of guessing the years 05, 08, somewhere in there. I think there was sort of a reunion tour, and I think it was as big of a disaster you can imagine.
Yeah.
You know, they're going on like 6 hours late or something. But I still kind of wish I would have gone to one of those.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on, because I do have a lot to go on. Chris.
Yep.
I'm going to let you take this, but we had a really good event last week since we were last here. Just briefly, like, what was that about? What
we went to Van Meter, at the Veterans Reception Hall there, and had representatives Gelbach, Nordman, and Young, and Senator Jesse Green, and we talked taxes and regulations of all sorts. And I got to tell you, Chris, as we've been doing these here this summer and fall, the legislators across the state and in both chambers have some really good takes on taxes and being fiscal conservatives, which you might go like, well, I'd hope so. But that wasn't always the case. I mean, in all honesty, and this is all anecdotal, but having done this for a number of years, meeting with legislators in their hometowns, in their communities, in front of their constituents, there's been a shift in how legislators view taxes and how they talk about it. And certainly that's on the heels of some major legislative accomplishments. And so I think as you know, in addition to a nice room and a nice event, just hearing the comments, the pro-taxpayer comments from these elected officials was really, really good. I mean, we the foundation, we did just a quick recap of it, and you can get a little bit of a sense of what these legislators were talking about. But to me, that's the most encouraging part.
I agree with that. We really have some really strong leaders in our legislature, and so that was really good to kind of visit with them. I mean, we know them, but to really get them in that scene, that setting where they're interactive with just folks that are like-minded on those issues is always really encouraging. So, well, very good. You can check that out at itrfoundation.org. Sarah, you sent an article today, so I'm moving on again. But being that you're from Southwest Iowa, you're sort of our regional person that pays attention to such things. But Council Bluffs.
Yep.
And the mayor of Council Bluffs,
Oh boy.
Well, I'll leave that aside, has been critical of efforts to rein in local government spending, let's say. Thinks
Did you read the article? Did you read how he thinks he should cut property taxes by millions more in spending?
so he has a different plan. So the legislature came in, as we have talked over and over, came in this year with a plan to rein in the growth in property taxes. Council Bluffs mayor didn't like that, but he's got a different plan. What's his plan?
He's going to take the really, really interesting plan that Omaha has and expand it and add streetcars.
Okay. How does building a network of streetcars for public transportation in Council Bluffs, Iowa?
But can I just point out something real quickly?
Yeah.
It is I believe just singular track to take you to Omaha.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because Omaha, the mayor in Omaha has been fighting and doing all this stuff to try to get streetcars there.
So if we could just
get one streetcar,
millions of dollars to build a streetcar to take people out of our city and our state, and just watch the funds roll in.
Yeah. So how does this generate tax revenue for the city of Council Bluffs that not only pays for the construction of the streetcars, but then returns money to the city coffers?
I really don't know. They're saying, oh, it'll help people work in Omaha. Well, I'm sorry. If you're working for Gallup or Union Pacific or any of those, businesses right there, you're driving. They just fixed the bridge. They're still working on I-29 and 80 and all that right there. I mean, I'm not taking a streetcar in 20-degree weather to my job that I can maybe see from Council Bluffs. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Is Council Bluffs a mostly pedestrian city? So like people could just walk to the local streetcar stop, or would they have to get in their car and drive to the streetcar station?
Oh, they're probably going to have, unless it's, I don't know where it is, but unless it's right downtown where there are some of those houses are, but most of Council Bluffs is in the bluffs, right? Hence the name. So you're going to have to drive to get to the streetcar and
get in your car, drive, park, get in the streetcar, ride the streetcar. Okay.
Chris, let me ask you. A lot of people in Dallas County, a lot of people hop on DART and take that to their job downtown Des Moines.
No.
So why would this be different?
Well, I'm just trying to get serious. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here.
You know what's going to turn into? There's the trolleys that they have in New Orleans that go down, the historic streets and stuff. And it's fun and it's touristy, and I love where I live. I do love my community. But there is no reason a tourist is going to come to Council Bluffs unless you are close and within driving distance. It's just not somewhere you're going to fly in. You're not going to you fly to New York City to go tourist. You don't fly to Omaha.
The streetcars and the trolleys in San Francisco are historic, and people go and do that, and they wait in line, to hop on them. But those are all, again, those are historic. They've literally been there a long time. You can't just build one to Omaha and Council Bluffs and think that's your draw.
Yeah, I know. Right. So I don't really understand it. I think there's a lot of other things that are impacting Council Bluffs right now that would be better for citizens, taxpayers, the whole thing.
Here's what I'm struggling with, guys. To me, it's just absurd on its face.
Yes.
And I'm really trying to get at any reason to latch onto as why any other person wouldn't just say that's ridiculous, because it's absurd on its face.
Well, let's put the streetcar topic this aside, and let's just say we're going to lower property taxes by spending a huge sum of money that we don't even know how much it's going to be yet.
Yeah, I was curious on that calculation because they say in the article, we don't know how much it will cost.
But we know it's going to lower taxes. How does that work?
Well, his thought is the extra development that will come there and the increase in valuation. When have we ever done a bunch of projects that have lowered taxes? I'd suggest to folks, don't take the bait. Cities and county governments will often flash something new that they want to spend money on and say, if we do this, we'll lower your taxes. Sometimes, Chris, that's the implementation of a sales tax rate. We'll raise the sales tax and you'll lower property taxes. That is not happening. And what will likely happen is not only this not lower anybody's taxes, but the area immediately around the streetcar, if a few things are developed, that is going to lift property valuations.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if it's an undeveloped parcel, you build something out, great. But if you're an apartment building nearby and all of a sudden 3 new things pop up, your valuations have gone up and you're getting stuck with a higher bill. This is not going to lower your taxes, folks. And I think it might be the definition of boondoggle.
Yeah. What has always frustrated me the most is these local government officials. It's just, they have this insatiable desire to build things, to build something, a new building or a new streetcar or a new aquatic center. It's like they have to build things to justify that they got elected. And I just don't understand that, why they can't let the private sector handle those things. You want to do building codes and zoning and public-private partnerships to redevelop. All those things are great, but why does a local government need to be in the business of engineering what gets built and where? And it just escapes me.
But now this is the same government that 2 years ago bought a ski resort. Remember?
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Well, okay, sorry,
kidding.
Potawatomi County, not the city, but still the same area. They bought a ski resort, which is a perfect thing for local government to get involved in.
Okay. I did see another one today, though, that I'm kind of interested to follow. Is this, we talked about this a little bit in our pre-production meeting, guys, but the Waterloo School District made an announcement yesterday that they want to actually, Waterloo schools have East High School and West High School, and they have a $160 million proposal to turn both of those buildings into middle schools or 8th, 9th grade, something, and then just build one unified high school. I'm always skeptical, and I think we kind of all are a little bit skeptical when we see new building projects and everything, but there was some talk about trying to do things differently. They've lost some students to open enrollment, and what can we do to do some things differently to try and retain students? And they're building it next to their career academy. Like, I'm actually genuinely curious to watch this and learn more about it and what they're trying to do, because maybe this is an example of local government, I guess, a school board or a superintendent actually trying to think outside the box and restructure some things to do it differently. So I don't know. Have you guys had any thoughts on that since we initially kicked that around? Sarah, I guess here's about, I'm going to ask you to do some of the research on this. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we looked at the numbers, they don't have a debt service levy. They have, overall, their property tax rate is not terribly high. And one thing you left out of the story, Chris, is that they're bonding against their save dollars, which is that extra 1 cent sales tax that goes to schools. So if they decide to do this, it's not going to go on to property taxpayers' bill, which I think is a good thing. When we see Dubuque that just had a $150 million school bond to build, and that was going to go on property taxpayers' backs, and this is not. So I think there's a different angle there. I haven't investigated it to the full extent, but just looking at our charts on ITR Local, they're not crazy on property taxes, and it doesn't look like this project would make them go any crazier. So I'm optimistic that maybe a school board is trying to make a good decision and keep the taxpayers in line, but I still haven't gotten into the fine print.
Yeah. Everything's local, and the challenge, which I guess is probably kudos to them, what works for their community. I'm a native of the neighboring Cedar Falls, so I kind of grew up in the area. I think they've had some challenges specifically at East High with declining enrollment there. And how do you retain the students while maybe giving them new opportunities at a new combined facility, especially with the career and technical things? Like, yeah, because some of the larger high schools are actually able to offer some pretty cool stuff in the career and technical things that Des Moines Central Academy has got. They do some really cool stuff down there. So yes. So anyway, we're going to watch that because I know we are often critical of local governments, but there really are some that are doing things the right way, that are trying new things, trying to innovate. And when those are going on, I think we should at least learn and figure out what works and what doesn't. So we will be watching. Very good. Um, so lastly, and I don't want to give this, cut this too short or anything. So I do want to carve out some time for it, Sarah, but we have talked on the show here about local elections and bonding. And you really are the one here that has done the vast majority of the work on getting the information, reporting it. And so I want to give you plenty of time to talk about it. But I guess at the very outset, I want you to tell everyone what you had to go through simply to find out what bond measures were on the ballot. Because I think this part is actually kind of interesting.
Yeah. So, the election's coming up. State law says that local governments have to file with their county auditor, or for the few city auditors we have in the state, 46 days before the election. So that's my go date. And then I send an email to all 99 auditors across the state. And I say, do you have a bond election on your ballot? And most of them respond pretty timely. Sometimes the email goes to spam, or someone's job has changed, or someone's on vacation. So it takes me about 2 weeks to hear back from everybody and call those and follow up. And that's how I find out where all the bonds are. I just have to contact all 99 auditors. And I will say at this point, we're pretty close. We're pretty friendly with them.
Well, and I think it's important too that without somebody like you going and find out what all those things are, a lot of them, no one even knows that they're happening until you get to, was it 50 days before? Like, what's the drop dead date to actually publish that and send the notice that the bond election is happening?
Oh, so they have to. So the new law says that there has to be direct notification, meaning like as a registered voter, you would get a postcard in the mail telling you have a bond election, or a letter in the mail. And so they have to send it no more than 20 days before the election, but no less than 10. But I want to say that's just a bond election. So there was a lot of property tax increases. There were hotel motel taxes. There were local option sales taxes. I couldn't track all of them just because it's so much. But a lot of those went through. Voters might not have known those were going on. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening with these local elections. And unfortunately, unless you call the auditor and find out, you don't know about it. Now, they're supposed to post it to their website. So, concerned citizen, you go to your county auditor's website, you should be able to pull up a sample ballot and see what's going on. Some of them don't put anything on the website. Some of them just put it on a Facebook post, a Twitter, but not on the website. Some of them you can't get a sample ballot. So it's not uniform, which is also difficult if you've got properties in multiple counties and you're trying to see what might be impacting your bill in future years.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, one of the reasons that's important is if I live in a community, I know that there's going to be an election for mayor or city council. And I can hey, who's running? Or I want to run. And it's, it's coming. But you may or may not know that there's a bond election coming, because that doesn't happen every year.
Right.
And so it's frustrating that there isn't more advance notice these things are coming up, because I will tell you that the city or the county or the school, they know it's coming. And some of them, like we've said on this show, did a real nice job of getting out in front of these and communicating with everyone, and really, and some of those measures passed and some didn't. But others wait until the last second and they're like, oh, here we go. There is no opportunity to organize any opposition to these measures, and they just have to take whatever the prepackaged messaging is from the taxing authority. So,
it's not even a chance to organize opposition, although maybe that'd be nice, but just how about an informed electorate?
Right.
How about you just kind of know what's going on and be able to weigh in and make your own decision?
That's exactly right. So, so with the bond measures that you did track, what have you learned? What's your takeaway?
So we had 45 bonds overall in the November election, and 23 passed and 22 failed. So pretty much split down the middle. Dollar amount, it was, we have it all on the website. I have it all broken down for everybody. For me, I think the biggest takeaway was the property tax bill that went into effect changed the way we did things. So you're probably used to voting on bonds or not even knowing that bonds are on your ballot in September or March. And so the law changed. It made them all happen in November, which was really helpful because it allowed us to report on them. I think the other thing that was helpful is that direct notification piece. So I tracked 5 bonds specifically because the law went into effect in May. So the last old school, I guess you'll call it, bond election happened in March. We tracked everything. And so there were 5 school districts that had a bond on the ballot in March and then also had a bond on the ballot in November. So I looked at voter turnout to just see, did this law make any changes? Did it actually impact voter turnout and generate more citizen engagement? And I would say it did. Looking specifically at the Clarinda School District, the March turnout was 31%, and in November it was 42%. IKM Manning, they had really, really high turnout, actually. IKM Manning had one of the highest turnouts for the March election at 53%. Well, then in November, they actually increased that. They went up to 56% voter turnout. So a lot. Overall, we had around 34% voter turnout for out of all 45, which is really, really good considering that it was 10 plus points lower for the March election.
Yeah.
I mean, Hawkeye Community College bond back in March only had a 5% voter turnout.
Wow.
And so when you look now, the average is 34%. I just think it's good, right? Whether you agree with the bond or you don't, or you like what it's going to do or you don't, I think people need to be engaged in their government and they need to have a voice. And if they know that something's happening, we can now see that they're engaged. And I want to point out too that this is a continuation of something that you were a part of. In 2017, the legislature passed a law that changed school elections from September to November. And the reason why is because turnout was so bad. And so we saw in that first school election that voter turnout had increased like 150%. So now we change bond elections in November and we have direct notification. Again, now we see that turnout has increased. And so now I'm looking at all this other stuff. I'm saying, okay, what are the other things that we're asking voters? It's obviously important because we have to take it to the voter. But do they know that these elections are happening at random times during the year or in March and September? So I'm going to try to take a deeper dive into those things and bring more attention to those because I think our legislature recognizes the problem of low voter turnout and they are enacting good laws to help increase that engagement. And I want to help continue that that movement, that momentum, so that way we can get more and more voter engagement in Iowa.
That sounds good.
Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, that's great. It's exactly what we're talking about. So, I mean, whether it's ITR local, globally, which you've done a lot of work on, or providing information here, we're simply trying to get it out to the local citizens so they can make that decision. And whether they want more spending on a project or not, they at least can make those decisions with more information. So, good.
Yeah.
All right. So there's plenty that you have written on that at itrfoundation.org as well. So
yeah, and I'm going to plug, we're actually just putting the final touches on the turnout article.
Yeah.
So I did an article with all the results from all the bonds, but this is also interesting. So the county auditors don't have the turnout numbers because a lot of these school districts cross multiple county lines and they don't have that data for each county. So I had to contact the Secretary of State's office and I had to ask them for the registered voters in all 45 jurisdictions. And then I had to go through and manually calculate out the turnout figures for each race. So that's why this data is so delayed. A lot of people are probably thinking, well, why didn't you have that with the results? That's why. I had to go through another layer to get this.
Well, and that's great because we're not just interested in who won or who lost. What can we learn as takeaways? Did this work? Did it not? And make decisions going forward for the legislature and beyond. So very good. Well, I appreciate it. All right. I think that's all the time we have for today. So appreciate y'all bearing with us for our technical challenges. Hopefully it was worthwhile. Thank you, Sarah, for making the trip up here solely to appear on the ITR Live podcast.
That's the only reason I came to Des Moines. Yes.
Great.
Chris, thank you for making the trip over from your office to
Yep.
join us in the RTL Live podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends, and don't forget to join us next time. And we look forward to seeing you next time on ITR Live.